Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to place Bill number 293-33 as amended by the Committee on Finance and Taxation, General Government Operations, and Youth Development on the third reading file, and if I can just briefly discuss it.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Thank you very much again. Bill 293 would authorize the continuous transfer of dormant and unclaimed bank account funds from the Treasurer of Guam to the Guam Housing Corporation's Housing Trust Fund instead of the general fund. Guam law provides that in the event there has been no activity of deposits or withdrawals in any bank savings account, and no contact has been made by the account holder of the account with the bank for 10 years, that a bank shall transfer the balance of such account to the Treasurer of Guam for the account of the depositor. This law also provides that in the event a check account is inactive for 2 years and the depositor cannot be located, that a bank shall transfer the balance of the account to the Treasurer of Guam for the account of the depositor. Now, funds transferred from banks to the Treasurer of Guam then are escheated to the Territory of Guam, but 1 year subsequent to the date of the transfer. If a depositor wishes to gain access to his or her bank funds that were transferred to the Government of Guam pursuant to Guam law, the depositor has the right to make a claim against the Government of Guam within the 1 year of the date of transfer. Now, the Guam Housing Corporation's Housing Trust Fund was established in 2012 as part of Public Law 31-166 to support the affordability and accessibility of housing for residents of Guam and to finance support services that assist low-income households in obtaining and maintaining affordable housing. According to the Guam Housing Corporation, approximately 70 families were awarded up to $10,000 each in first-time home ownership grants since the enactment of Public Law 31-166, authored by the late Speaker Ben Pangilinan. In the 32nd Guam Legislature, I authored Public Law 32-36, which transferred $2.1 million to fund the first-time homeowners ownership program. And these grants then yielded over $53 million in real estate, banking, escrow, appraisers, and title insurance activity. And we haven't even factored in furniture and appliances and even the construction of the homes. However, moreover, it provided then 289 family homes. Now, Bill 293 will help improve the Guam Housing Corporation's ability to fund additional home ownership application to the benefit of families. More than $700,000 of escheated funds then are available and could fund approximately 95 families while stimulating the real estate economy by $17.5 million. At the time of the hearing of this bill, we were informed that there's approximately 15 people now on the waiting list. And some of them are fearful already because they had to ask their banking institution to kind of delay the processing of their application in hopes then that their application would be received by the Guam Housing Corporation. So the funding of the Guam Housing First-Time Home Owner Program would definitely help a good number of Guam's families. Then we would also allow these funds to flow through many sectors of our economy, such as real estate transaction, employment, construction materials and services, appraisal services, and so on. Home ownership is a powerful and measurable component to our economy. So I'm hoping that as a legislature that we do our part then in building a stronger economy and thus a stronger community for not just this particular generation but for future generations as well. So, and with that, may I ask the opportunity, I'm not going to amend anything, but in this case I'd like to just please add Senator San Nicolas as a co-sponsor.
We On the motion to add Senator Nicholas as a co-sponsor, any objection? There being none. Madam Speaker, I'm looking at the notes here. There were some names here. Was this a speaking order that you had on the list? Okay. Oh. All right. So I saw, while the speaker was speaking, Senator Wynia Barnes asked to speak, and Senator Tom Atta, and Senator Nicholas. Okay. So Wynia Barnes, Senator, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand and rise in support of Bill number 293-33. I want to share with you that I want to thank the good speaker for giving me the opportunity to be her second co-sponsor on this bill. Mr. Speaker, just based on her presentation and truly giving the opportunity for our people in our community to realize a better quality of life by making sure that these first-time homeowners will truly have that realization of home ownership and provide for the basic sustainability of housing children and the, I want to say the most successful part of this program is to making sure that as we provide these grants to these recipients, the translation that it works with the community. Somebody's going to build a house, they go through the bank loans, they go through the closing fees, they go through the construction material, they go through the housing supplies, the need for getting not just the housing construction supplies, but just everything else that comes with building a house, Mr. Speaker. And when she talked about the amounts earlier, I'm saying that if you can give somebody a grant, but the realization is bigger. So the last time we went through this cycle, Mr. Speaker, the legislature was gave 1.2 million, about 1.2 million, 2.1 million, I'm sorry, and that translated into over $53 million back into the economy. Mr. Speaker, I say that that's a win-win. We take these funds. Mind you, that this is not taking from any other government fund, but that the funds that have not been utilized by those who put into their bank accounts, and those cheated funds have not been claimed after so many years. So giving that portion, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at a little bit over 700,000? Over 700,000, the realization of that is maybe half of 53 million, or a quarter of 53 million, which will still translate into a positive economic effect for our community. So as Oversight Chair of Housing, Mr. Speaker, and having worked closely with the good author and the speaker in this matter, I just want to thank her for her support. I ask that my colleagues help us support this effort and truly give the realization to younger families who really want to provide new homes and a new place for their children and just have a better quality of life. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to rise in support of this measure, and ask that my colleagues support the efforts. Sana Masi.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Tom Atta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess the question that I have is why should this money be deposited to the Guam Housing Trust Fund? And I'm not saying that that's a bad place to put it, but then there's also other places. I mean, we hear Department of Education, 7 million that they need to take care of things. They're adding up from FESPAC, 65,000. They have their needs also. I'm sure you go to, sanctuary. I mean, it's one of those sort of things where if I put a dartboard behind me with all these various needs in the community, and I threw a dart behind my back, and wherever it lands, that would be a good place to use this money. So maybe if the author can just, if the author would yield and just explain to, I know that it's been done before several times, and I must admit, I just kind of, sat back and said, okay, fine, that's a good place to put it. The argument that with the injection of $1 million, that kind of multiplied into multi-millions of dollars, and that's good. But I'm just curious as to the rationale as to why here and not DOE and not to GMH to start granted $700,000 against a $30 million liability is a drop in the bucket. But just help me understand, please, why there and not these other needs. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, do you yield?
Yes, and thank you very much for the question. I think it's important that, and his question is very important, and we all know that as well, that these other departments and agencies, especially now, are realizing, some shortfalls. The big difference, however, with this, and this is where now we would see that the fact that we've transferred these monies over, and then they turn it around and give it out to individual low-income families, that amount of money that they have given them to assist them for their first-time homes is that will, the multiplier effect of that will start then to trickle out towards the entire community and would yield, 100 times more, really, in this particular case where we saw how successful they were with a $2.1 million deposit, that a return of over $53 million. So that's almost 300 times more than what we put in. And the examples that were given is that everything that has to do with real estate, we haven't even factored in furniture, appliances, construction workers, and creating jobs. So this is the returns of the little monies that we're putting in. The returns are far greater. And then with those monies coming into the government, and as you know, with the GRTs being paid, then that goes into the general fund, and then those monies we turn around and then appropriate to the other departments and agencies for their needs and operations.
Senator Ada, is that satisfactory?
Well, at least I understand better the rationale of the author of the bill, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anything further, Senator? Senator Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this bill, and I want to explain why. Escheated funds are basically money that's going to be remitted to the government of Guam, and that already is the standard practice. What this bill is doing is it's taking that money that's going to be remitted to the government of Guam, and it's specifying that it's going to go into this trust fund to be used for the first-time home ownership program. And the reason why that is something that's I think we should all get behind and get excited about is because we already have the system set up where that money is supposed to be remitted to the government. The problem is that we're not investing that money for a greater rate of return. Usually what happens is that money comes in as cash, and then it kind of gets burned into the system to pay off whatever cash need is present at that particular point in time. I've always been of the opinion, every time I've evaluated our budgets, that we need to manage our resources in the government almost the same way that we do a household. When we have recurring revenue streams, those are the things that we should be budgeting for and projecting, when we have these one-time opportunities that come our way, whether it's cash or an additional amount in Section 30 that's to make up for a shortfall that's accumulated over so many years, or any other one-time infusion of resources into the government, we should not be using that to finance recurring expenses. I mean, it's like getting a gift from a friend or a family member on your birthday. You're not going to go out and budget for that all the way out for the next 15, 20 years. You take that one-time cash resource and you use it for a one-time expense. When it comes to investing, you really need to make your investments depending on whether or not the revenue stream is going to be recurring or a one-time occurrence. If it's a one-time occurrence, you need to invest it for a rate of return that's going to generate over an extended period of time. If it's a recurring revenue stream, you can use it to fund an ongoing operation. So these escheated funds, these are not recurring revenue streams. The amounts that get escheated are going to vary depending on how much gets remitted to the government of Guam. And so the question becomes, how do we best invest that money for the benefit of the people of Guam? Because when it's escheated to the government, it becomes an asset of the people of Guam. And so for me, one of the best investments we can make is to use this money for the first-time home ownership program. And here's why. These funds that go into this trust fund are then used as down payment grants for loans that are taken out for people to build their first home. And so what happens is, usually when you have to make a down payment, just talking strictly in a traditional sense for a mortgage, you got to put a 20% down payment. So just using that high figure, assuming 20%, this $700,000 in down payment will access $3.8 million in leveraged resources to be able to construct homes. So you're going to take a $700,000 investment from the people of Guam and leverage that into a $3.8 million asset that is going to be financed by banks or financial institutions that are going to be giving out the mortgage loan on top of that initial down payment. So basically, you're going to take a $700,000 investment from the people and turn it into a $3.8 million asset. Now, that $3.8 million asset goes into the property values that get developed in terms of these homes that are built. And those property values are retained for the benefit of the people of Guam in the increase in our debt ceiling capacity. So by taking $700,000 and investing it this way, we're going to increase our debt ceiling capacity by $3.8 million. Now, what does that mean? That means that we have just that much more breathing room in our borrowing ability, and that breathing room helps us to get better rates from the rating agencies and the bond markets. And those better rates result in us paying lower interest on the bonds that we float, the loans that we take out for various other capital improvement projects on the island. And so that will help us to get better ratings from bond agencies, lower interest payments on those bonds that usually are amortized over a 30-year period, and a tenth of a basis point on a $400 million bond, that's $400,000. Over 30 years, that's $12 million. Just to get a tenth of a basis point improvement in your bond rating. So whenever we can do that, do those kind of things to increase our bond ratings, it always is a benefit to the people of Guam. Now, the other thing that we get as a benefit from this is that these properties increase the valuation of the asset, and they become properties on the tax rolls of the government of Guam. Now, what does that mean? Our property taxes go into the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund, which goes to pay for education. So we're taking a $700,000 investment, leveraging it up to a $3.8 million asset that's going to be generating a property tax revenue stream based on the value of that asset that's going to be going to education. So it's almost like investing $700,000 to get a repeated revenue stream for education. The good news is, because the way we build our houses here, they're built like bunkers, they last forever. So long as somebody owns that property and they're paying a property tax on it, that's going to continue to pay dividends to education in perpetuity. So that you win on the investment in those two ways. But there's a third way you win on this investment. You get an individual who owns a home. Now, there's all kinds of benefits to that, but let's talk about first the financial benefits. When you own your first house, that's your biggest asset. And that asset is going to afford you so many opportunities going forward. As you pay down that house, you begin accruing equity in the house. And later on, 20 years down the road, you can access that equity. You can borrow against the value of your house in order to be able to pay for your kids' college education, in order to make down payments on additional properties that you want to buy. You're going to be able to continue accessing the value of that home. You're going to be able to leverage your own asset and have a multiplier effect in that way. It's also going to appreciate in value. And as those properties appreciate in value, not only does it increase our debt ceiling capacity for the people of Guam, but it also increases the net worth of the individual. And so the more we can increase our individual's net worth, the more they're going to be in a better position to be able to look out for the interests, the financial interests of their families. And then, of course, we have all the non-financial benefits of home ownership. Well, we can go into that. Having your own place. Instead of paying rent, you're paying down the property and accruing the value that way. And then, your kids, something to leave to your children, an asset for them to pass on down to their kids. I mean, it just keeps paying back, and paying back. So this, for me, is a very sound way to invest a non-recurring revenue stream. If we're going to be getting money coming in on a one-time shot, let's make sure that we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck. And on our island, with the way we build our homes, the way our people take care of them, and the different benefits that spill over as a result, this is one of the best ways that we can use these escheated funds. Because right now, the practice is it comes into the government, and it kind of just gets burned up in the black hole of the general fund to pay down all the different costs that, creep up. And the reality is that the more we over-appropriate on this floor, the more it just keeps burning up those cash resources, and those cash resources then don't get invested into our community this way. So in terms of evaluating the options, would I rather we invest the $700,000 and get all those benefits, or would I rather we we let it go into the system and it gets appropriated for pay raises on layaway? I mean, that's a trade-off. But for me, this is the highest and best use of a non-recurring revenue stream that belongs to our people as a result of the escheatment laws that we have on our island. So I'm in full support of this bill. I think that it'll be wise for us to continue to evaluate revenue streams on our island in this way. Because going forward, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of other revenue streams that we're going to be able to anticipate that are also technically going to be non-recurring. One of the largest ones is going to be the military buildup. And one of the biggest mistakes we can make is appropriating military buildup money as if it's going to be recurring in perpetuity, when we're going to see a big spike in buildup revenue that's eventually going to drop and taper off. That spike and the difference between what the normalized recurring revenue streams are and the non-recurring revenue streams are, that difference should also be invested in ways similar to this, whether it's in the first-time homeownership program, or if we're going to be investing in capital improvements throughout our island, they're going to have a useful life of 10, 20, 30 years, or going to pay down long-term debt. Those are the different ways that we need to be evaluating how we're going to be using recurring and non-recurring revenue. So in this small example, this is a way for us to invest and get a perpetual rate of return for education, improve the quality of life of our people, increase the debt ceiling capacity, and help to slowly bring down our bond ratings. Bring up our bond ratings, bring down our borrowing costs. And it's a good investment. And I'm thankful that the Speaker was able to move this legislation forward. I'm honored to be added as a co-sponsor. And I think that these kind of things are the kind of things that we need to continue to advocate for, speak to the merits about, and help to educate our people as to why these kind of bills and these kind of actions are actually of an exponential financial benefit to our island and our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Tommy Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 293, and also want to thank the author for allowing me to be a co-sponsor of this measure. Mr. Speaker, obviously the author pointed out a lot of the data, the stats, and the success of the first-time owners program as a result of Public Law 3236. But I also want to point out from the public hearing some of the challenges that I noted with the program. We all know that around $500,000 is funded to the Guam Housing Corporation for this program. However, I was able to note that not only for this year that there's a waiting list, but prior years and historically they've been having challenges having waiting lists. A family member or a first-time owner or a person looking to purchase their first home noted that they were given the clearances and through the application process, and all the assurances were there. They were proceeding, cleared the land, and they did all the logistics to at least start the ground running. However, not being notified that the funds have depleted. So, knowing that this program clearly works, and also knowing that $500,000 is being funded to the Guam Housing Corporation to this program, that it's not adequate. Perhaps the author, I don't know if she may be looking at this, that this is cheated funds program or depositing into this program, and knowing the returns, as pointed out by the previous speakers, the return on this investment, perhaps not knowing historically that we're having these waiting lists, that we can consider permanently looking at this program or making it the cheated funds a permanent program that funds the first-time owners program, so that we're not back here every time and listening to first-time owners or those that are looking to purchase their first home and sitting at a table just crossing their fingers at the public hearing, hoping that a measure goes through when those homes should be being under construction at this time. I bring up this point, Mr. Speaker, because this is an opportunity for us to create a kind of a seamless system or program that has a dedicated funding source that we know has worked in the past. As noted, 200 plus homes not too long ago, or families were assisted by this cheated program or cheated funds. So I bring that testimony to light, or some of the families from that public hearing, because I think even hearing from Guam housing officials that this is a recurring issue. There is a waiting list every year, and how do we end up with a waiting list and not even understanding 500,000 historically is wiped out in a flash, that we still accept applicants, and perhaps we're giving kind of false hopes and banking on legislation to do this for them. So we're making families exhaust funds on the front end, getting a backhoe, clearing the land, working with a contractor, and then Guam Housing Corporation accepting applications to further their hopes, knowing the funds are depleted. So I pose possibly an option for the author to consider that. Oh, okay. All right. So it's basically we're looking to doubling this program based on what is being looking to be deposited here. So again, I'm glad that we are taking a lot of these testimonies being provided, especially from the families that are looking to purchase their first homes, and knowing that this is a recurring issue and finding a resolution to that. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I thank the author for including me in this measure.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Any other senator wish to be heard on Bill 293? Any other senator wish to be heard on 293? On the main motion? There being none, Madam Speaker, you're welcome to close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank, of course, the previous speaker, because he was there at the public hearing when that was brought up. It was also discussed in a roundtable meeting in terms of what it is that we can do to make sure then that we just are not scrambling every year to try to help and have all these families remain on a waiting list, and sometimes it just makes it so prohibitive for them to get those loans. In the in Public Law 32-36, at least the bill that I had authored at that time was to actually make this a continuous transfer, but it was the wish of the body at that time to make it a one-time. What I've done then in this and the amendment here is that to go in and go back to that original writing of the bill is to make it now a continuous transfer of dormant and unclaimed bank accounts on an annual basis, because it sits for 1 year, and then of course then the following year it's available for the government to have it go into the general fund. So what's going to happen instead now is that it will continuously go in, provide funding for those individuals that are in the waiting list every year. And I thank, of course, one of our speakers earlier who eloquently described, the many benefits that this program actually provides, and it's a really good investment, I think, on not just our people, but it's also an investment in our economy. So I just hope then that our colleagues here would support this bill then when we go down to the voting file. So my motion then is to place 293 in the third reading file without any objection.
On the motion to send the bill down. Senator Winya Barnes, you're recognized on Bill 323.
Cesar Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if I may, Bill 323-33 COR, can I move it to third reading, and it would be the bill as amended by the Committee on Municipal Affairs, Tourism, Housing, and Historic Preservation.
And so that's the one with the asterisk on it?
The one with the asterisk as amended, please.
All right. Yes, Senator, so you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, if I may, Bill 323-33 COR as amended is an act to amend subsections A of sections 30101 of Chapter 30 of Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, to add a new Section 30109, Section 30110, and Section 30111 to Chapter 30 of Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the reducing the hotel occupancy tax rates for the bed and breakfast, and for authorizing the Director of Revenue and Taxation or his designee to enter into tax collection agreements with the transit accommodation brokers. Madam Speaker, this bill has a couple of parts. There are two parts to the amended version of the bill. The first part, Madam Speaker, will authorize the Department of Revenue and Taxation to enter into agreements with sites such as the Airbnb, Flipkey, and others to collect the hotel occupancy tax from visitors.
Well, Senator, one moment. Senator.
Madam Speaker, can we have just a 30-second recess?
Sure.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll take a brief recess. Senator, you still have the floor.
Situ Asmasi, Madam Speaker, and thank you for giving this opportunity to work some points in the on recess. I'd like to thank my good colleague from Manila for addressing and seeing what we could do to look at the other two companion bills and maybe do a technical motion and a motion, since the bill number 324-33 as amended.
No. It's
So-
323.
I'm on bill
And-
number 32323.
And you have two amendments.
And I have two amendments.
You're right.
Madam
And-
Speaker.
And,
And I'd like to take those two amendments
okay,
and which I believe are companion bills to bill, are which deal with the same.
no, so your amendment is, of course, if clarifying the definition of bed and breakfast, and then your second amendment is the establishing, of course, penalties for owner properties and leasing of real property. Those are your two
Right.
amendments.
So 323 talks about the MOU with Department of Revenue and Taxation bill. The second amendment would include the provision for establishing the bed and breakfast and the
Yes.
short-term vacation units.
Yes,
And the third amendment, which is now
on the civil penalties.
on the civil penalties,
Yes, and legal counsel then.
and
would
have
take
legal counsel
two-
do the technical changes,
So legal counsel would be given then the
authorization.
will be authorized then to take your two amendments and add it onto your bill.
Well-
And provide a copy for the body to review at 2
So
p.m.
move, Madam Speaker, if I may, you're just clarifying it. I have bills 323, 324, and 325,
No,
and
you-
I
you
want to
have-
make
you
sure
have-
that
you have-
two amendments.
You have only 323.
That's right.
Okay,
And
yes.
and I want to take.
And 323, you're asking for two amendments
Two amendments to
for
be made
323 and legal
to add
counsel.
to bill number 323.
Yes.
Thank you,
I
Madam
understand.
Speaker.
Thank you very much. No objection, so ordered. We're going to recess for lunch until 2 p.m. this afternoon. Recess.